series featuring Iranian artist Zeinab Shahidi Marnani. It is a privilege to host an artist like Zeinab, whose excellent and intelligent work, using largely video and text, is permanently exploring new meanings and attempting to create situations where dialogue becomes possible. Zeinab has just completed an artist residence at the International Studio and Curatorial Program in New York, working in collaboration with Art Jameel in partnership with Edge of Arabia. Edge of Arabia is a London-based platform for the promotion of contemporary art with a particular focus on Saudi Arabia. Zeinab holds a Master's of Fine Arts in Sculpture from Yale School of Art. Some of the places her work has been exhibited at include the Print Shop MoMA, Post in Los Angeles, Thomas Urban Gallery in New York, Devi Art Foundation in India, Iranian's Artist Forum in Tehran, Tehran Museum of Contemporary Arts, and Design Transfer Gallery in Berlin. She currently spends her time working between Tehran and New York. Not only is it a pleasure to hear Zeinab speak tonight and to get acquainted with her work, but it is also extremely important that Washington audiences are exposed to her work, as it reflects this new artistic energy that is coming out of the Middle East region and that MEI wants to continue to bring to the nation's capital. So thank you very much, Zeinab, for being with us tonight. But before we begin, I just want to say a few words about the Middle East Institute Arts and Culture program. We established the program a bit more than a year ago, recognizing the importance of the vibrant art scene that is coming out of the Middle East region, and because we see that the promotion of arts and culture is a key component of MEI's chief goal of increasing American understanding of the Middle East. Artists are developing new narratives and telling stories that have not been told before. And we want to bring them to Washington, D.C., and introduce those new voices, new artists, and civil society actors who offer a different lens on the region and are relentlessly and bravely making their voices heard and calling for a forward-looking Middle East. We program artist talks, film screenings, and panels once or twice a month. But our ambitions are to grow and start putting on art shows, photography exhibitions, installations, performing arts, and more. So we have much more in store for you, and keep your eye on our announcements and flyers that are coming up for the fall season and beyond. If you have any questions about the program, please come and find me after the talk. I'll be happy to chat with you. But now enough of me. I want to turn to Zeinab and give her the floor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for coming. And thank you, Lynn. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is I wanna introduce two kind of body of my works, but I'm gonna start with this introduction, and the whole thing would be a slideshow. So you can, right now, I'm not gonna talk about the meaning of the word and those kind of stuff. I just wanna make it possible to imagine each of the works that I'm gonna talk about, and then afterward we can talk about, other layers or anything that you like. So this part, the first part, there would be 3 chapters. The first chapter is just an introduction. I'm going to introduce to some of the projects that I see them like as the context of my recent projects. And the first one is called the same as last title. And some of the works are like video installations, some of them are videos but I'm not going to show you the videos, but we can talk about that. I think it would be kind of possible to, imagine what I'm talking about. So this first body of work is called the same as last title, and it's, as you see, it's a monitor, and there is a video which is displayed in the monitor, and the video shows me looking at the camera with gestures that imply that I'm responding to someone, but the video is silent. And there is this two-way mirror which is leaning on the front side of the camera, and there are black segments that with different length that I edited in the video. And when the black segments appear, you would see, I mean, the audience sitting in front of the video would see him or herself. And then when the other segment appear, which is like kind of bright, you would see the video through the mirror. And it's like 2 hours video, so it's a kind of living video, and it's you as an audience and me over there responding to you, and it's kind of like you make, I'm not going to talk about that, it's going to take so long, but it's like you and me have the same agencies, you know, making this happen, kind of. And it's like me talking to you from the past time, and you are in the present time, kind of. So the last, okay, I'm gonna pass some of the works, and then after all, if we had time, I will go back to them. So the first kind of body of works were more about the impossibility of making dialogue between me and the audience. We'll talk about that later, probably more. And these kind of two series of work, two kind of project works, they are more about how to not participate. So, I mean, it's like, okay, this work is called $25, and the work was made as part of an art auction exhibition for Haiti earthquake relief effort, and it was at Yale Gallery. So for every work, as you see, there is a photocopy which includes the title of the work, the material, and also the minimum bid for each work. So what I did was just pinning this $25 into the wall, and as the title I wrote like $25, and the minimum bid was $25, the same amount. And the first bid also was the first, I mean, I put the first bid as $25. So if you, I mean, anyone who wanted to follow my lead in helping the people of Haiti could buy the money by adding his or her own help and get the artwork. And the next work is each also about kind of, I mean, I can categorize it as how to not participate. It was like in 2012, I got this invitation email from two curators, Iranian curators, who, because I studied graphic design, I was kind of graphic designer in Iran before coming here. So they sent me and a few others of my friends. I think we were about 10 people receiving that email. They invited us to participate in this book called, what was the name of the book? It was like, it was funny, well-known Iranian women graphic designers. So I was like, I'm not gonna participate in this book, because first of all, because of the women, I mean, the gender boundary that I was so against of. And then I thought, okay, I'm not gonna respond. And after 2 days, I thought maybe I should talk to my friends who received the same email. And I sent them this email, and we started talking about the invitation. They had the same objections as me, and we were agreeing in some levels. So we started to talk about even if it's good to just say no, or maybe we should do something else, or maybe we should make something about our objection or something.
Can you explain again, what was your objection?
Because it was called Women Graphic Design of Iran, or something like that, and I didn't want to be categorized as woman. yeah, and also Iranian. All those social construction that I don't see any points in them. So
you were concerned that it was specifically women.
yeah, it was like, I don't remember the number, but just imagine 10 or 15 women. We had to, the thing was that the book was made of our work. We had to work like, fill out 4 pages of the book with our artwork. We supposed to make work for the book.
So if there had been men, that would have been okay.
It wasn't okay either.
No, if there had been.
Both women and men, just Iranian artists. I mean, it would be less problematic, but even Iranian, when they add this, I have just some problems. I don't know why you should be categorized. Unless you have some, unless you have some kind of Iranian thing in your work, otherwise it wouldn't mean anything for me. Okay. I mean, referring to those, all of those gender or nationality things, they are also pointless for me. The right word. Okay, and then what we did was to just talk through email, because I was in New York, my friend was in Iran, the other was in Amsterdam, so we were emailing each other about that, and we were investigating different ways of expressing our objections. And at the middle of our conversation, we kind of decided to fill out our 16 pages, because we were 4, with the same emails that we were, passing. Yeah. And those, okay, can't talk about that later. Okay.
In the end, you actually submitted something.
Yeah. And our emails was more than 16 pages, so we decided to give them the first kind of part of our emails. So it was pretty enough.
Did they do anything with those, or just ignored it?
No, they accepted that. They couldn't not to accept, because there was no condition what we could submit and what we couldn't. So, they got angry, but they had no choice. Yeah. And then those things that I talked about, I saw like the introduction to these 2. This is the first kind of main body of work that I want to talk about. So this is a kind of written interview that I made. At this point, I started to make dialogue with people and then represent what happened between us to the audience. So it wasn't like me making dialogue with the audience, but it was like me making dialogue with someone else and then showing the result or the document to the viewer. Okay. So this one was a kind of written interview, and it was a contribution to the book Seeing Studies, which was produced by Documenta 13. And the book was based on this educational book in arts, it doesn't matter, but one chapter of there were many artists involved, but each artist was working in one chapter of the book, and my work was about the calligraphy chapter of the book, because I study typography and all those things. So I decided to talk to Reza Abedini, who's a well-known Iranian typographer. So what I did was to choose one paragraph of the book and write my opinion about that in one paragraph. And then I sent that paragraph to him, and I asked him to correspond with me regarding his opinion on my reading of this paragraph. And then he wrote me between my lines as I requested him. And then when he sent me back those, the combination of my writing and his writing, I continued the dialogue with him by interrupting his response and replying in the middle of his text with a different color. And what happens that we repeated that for multiple times, and each time we were supposed to use a different color. So the text was expanding from the within. You see. And we continued this exchange for 10 times until the dialogue come full circle. And then we stopped.
Who was the dialogue with?
With Reza Bedini. He's a graphic designer. He lives in, actually he lives between Amsterdam and Beirut right now, but he used to be my professor in Iran. So we knew each other and we had all those conversations.
The notion of writing as art is very, very interesting. Do you think it's a play on sort of modern calligraphy that you're doing with colors and Microsoft Word? Or is the act itself of polemicizing and, just engaging in this dialogue, is that the art?
That's, yeah, maybe the process of trying to making a new method of, making a dialogue.
Right.
Maybe that would be called an art practice. Not the color, the color, don't have any aesthetic value. They are just for you to kind of being able, I didn't want the audience not to be able to follow the linear kind of temporality, because I didn't want to have a different kind of, because if it was all black, it was like I would hide something from the audience, But at the same time, you have two options. You have the option of reading the whole thing from the top to the bottom, and the other option is to
Read one color.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You don't seem to be touching on content. Is that not so important?
It is so important. Actually,
Can you just tell us some of the major points that you're discussing?
it was about the paragraph that I chose was about this calligrapher Mir Emad and his method, and about the creativity that he had. But in traditional kind of education, you are not allowed to create anything. You have to just, repeat and repeat what your master gave you as the kind of, how do you say, especially about calligraphy. You have to just repeat what you have. You are not supposed to create or change anything. And the discussion was all about Mir Emad creativity and how it is kind of it's not totally, it's kind of against those bases that we kind of imagine from the traditional education, and it somehow our discussion turned to politics and the kind of relationship between educational system and political system and all those references. But it was kind of complicated.
Does it also take the form of master-student transference?
What do you mean?
Well, you were referring to the calligrapher and how you had to basically just repeat.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that the person you were having this dialogue
Yeah.
with was your professor.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious if that was an element as well.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't important that he was my, because we were friends before anything. So, but I knew that he was kind of so devoted on and kind of traditional kind of calligraphy and all those values, and I didn't care about that because I thought, you know, there is this strong relationship between that traditional basis with dictatorship and all those things. So the discussion was all about that, and the value of individual and how you can be, you know, creative and bring something new. Okay, it's.
That is great. Can I ask that we do questions and answers at the end? Just because we're recording, you don't have a microphone yet. We can't capture your questions. So I would like to let the artist finish her presentation, and then we're going to turn to questions and answers. Okay?
Yeah, but at the same time, if I say something which is not obvious and you can't
Yes, please.
understand what.
They can hold back to it,
I see.
and we can get. It's just that I can't capture what they're
I
saying.
see. Okay. No, I mean in terms of the work itself, not the not the meaning. Yeah, because sometimes because I know everything, maybe. Okay, so that was the first. It was called actually I forgot. It was called Soliloquy, and Soliloquy is the name of this work, and also the two other works that I'm gonna, you know, talk about one of them. And Soliloquy is in theater. Means when you know dialogue, but monologue is a long speech with some from a character, and soliloquy is when the character talks about his or her thoughts, but with loud voice, so you can hear it, but it's not. It's like you are not supposed to hear, but you'll hear. And so this one was soliloquy first, and the soliloquy third. Is this one. Okay, Soliloquy Third is a series of video documentary that were made out of the participation of artists from different disciplines, volunteer artists actually. I started the project in 2013, and it was like I invited artists to at the very beginning of the process of working to come and sit in front of my camera and a mirror and the laptop then was added. I will tell you about, and talk about their initial idea of the project that they were gonna work about. And then I recorded them. I wasn't in the room; they were alone talking about the work. And then when they leave, I asked them to come back again whenever they found any changes in their plans. And after a week or two, they come back, and I would play the same footage for them. And they would be sitting in front of the camera, mirror, and the laptop playing their last footage. And they have this remote control in their hand. And they would pause the video whenever they found any changes in their words. So they would pause and talk about the changes, like I'm not gonna do that anymore, I changed the plan, blah blah blah, and they play it again. And then I would edit the comments right at the moment that they pause the video. And then I asked them to come back again, and they would sit in front of the combination of the first and second round, and then they can again pause it and make comments, and it could be repeated for multiple times, and it's kind of like the same idea as the text but through video. And these are different artists, and it's a kind of work in progress because I'm still doing that with different artists. And I forgot to tell you, those different colors in the background, exactly like the same, the text, they show the different, around the different time that they came to the studio. And it's like, first is red, the second round is green, the third round is yellow, and the fourth round is blue. And you kind of miss the temporality anyways. So the next project was done a year ago in Tehran, because I was in Tehran for the last 3 years ago, and I did it with a collaboration with Anita Esfandiari. We made this semi kind of open call to our friends, and we asked them if they are not happy with the kind of guide that they needed to follow to appear in the public spaces. They can send us a kind of photograph from them, a portrait photograph with kind of the look that they want to kind of appear on the street. And we would print it on a tote bag, and we give the bag to them. So it was just that simple. And we would charge them for the material, but not more. And these are some photos from us with the tote bags. And it wasn't just about guides or rules that the state impose on you, and even not just the social norms. It was we even thought about how you are kind of, you even, okay, you see how we are talking, and it's like we are at the middle of talking or something, without even the kind of ID photo that we are used to. It's not real, and it's from those special moments that we look so plain, and it's like this. But in all other situations, we have all other gestures that we kind of ignore them. It's like they are not us. So it's all about, all of them. So these are in Tehran, all of them. Oh, and it was called 9230, the project. So the next body of the work is, this work is, I just started that. Not just, but it's been like 6 months that I started that, and I'm still in the production kind of process. It's called Histories, and I think it would be a video documentary. It could be also an archive documentary, but I have to, decide about that. And it's a video documentary based on collecting my collecting different stories about from my relatives who live in Isfahan. And this is an old image from the city Isfahan, which is in south of Tehran. And it's during the Qajar dynasty, around like 100 years ago, a bit more. And I should give you some, background about the project. I collected the stories about my last name from my relatives. My last name is Martyr of Marnan, and the word martyr is used by a Muslim. It's an honorific title which Muslim use for the one who lay down his or her life fulfilling a religious commandment. And the ancestor of mine who was apparently being killed during the Qajar dynasty or before that, he has, according to what people say, he was an educated elite. And during the Qajar dynasty in Iran, there was this religious authority, and also with educated elite. They were kind of demanded the establishment of the rule of law in the country and a curb in the royal authority of the Shah. So these, there were two parties at the time against the Shah, the religious authority and also the educated elites. And it was in 1905. Okay, and the last name, because it was the murder of Marnan, I had always this kind of question that if he was the guy was an educated elite, how come they claim or they named him as Shahid or martyr, because the word is kind of referred to the Muslim authority. When I came here to the US and I was taking those courses in history department at Yale with Professor Amanat, he told me this story. This guy, these photos are from Mashrute or Constitutional Revolution of Iran. And I just put them here to give you a sense of the time and how people dress up, or just imagine how it looks, maybe, because it was just 100 years ago. It wasn't that long. So Mr. Amanat told me that there was this strong possibility that my last name is associated with a Baha'i victim at the time. So I was kind of surprised because I had no idea. And then it was so interesting for me because I've never heard of that. And at the same time, I was always surprised about the martyr word. And I started calling my different relatives, old relatives, and asking about the family. And that was so funny because each of them gave me a totally different story. And in all the stories, there were two main characters beside the ancestor. This guy, who is Zello Sultan, the prince of the Qajar dynasty in Isfahan, and this guy, Agha Najafi, he's the kind of religious authority of the city at the time. And they were both so influential in the constitutional revolution, especially Agha Najafi. And then when I heard those kind of contradictional stories, I decided to kind of video record them somehow, and it seems so impossible, but it happened actually. And I was thinking about just archiving the stories without any kind of judgment about what would be the real story. So the stories, the first story said that the ancestor was a revolutionary and he had a close relationship with Agha Najafi, this guy, and who was a religious authority. And the story said that Agha Najafi was opposed to the policy of Zello Sultan, the prince of the Qajar dynasty in Isfahan, and Zello Sultan adopted this strategy of broadcasting some of the revolutionaries, like the ancestor of mine, as Baha'i, to just get rid of them, because according to Agha Najafi's permission, it was necessary for the Muslim to execute Baha'i people at the time. And as the guy was killed by a group of fanatic people calling him Baha'i, and according to the guy narrative, it was the Sultan kind of plan to kill him. Agha Najafi, what Agha Najafi did was to title him as Shahid or martyr, to prove that he was Muslim, and also to prove that he wasn't responsible for killing him, but it was the Sultan. And the second story was totally opposite. It was saying that Agha Najafi and Zelo Soltan, they had a good relationship with each other. They were both against the educated elite and revolutionaries. And the guy wasn't Baha'i. He had just some questions, some simple questions about the Baha'ism and the execution of them. And then he was killed by the permission of Agha Najafi. And the other story, the third story, was saying that he was one of the most influential Baha'is of the people of the time in Isfahan. So there were all those different stories, and I'm at least at the middle of the project because there are more people that I can interview. So these are the whole interviews that I had. So now I'm at the middle of the process, and I would be so happy to, hear from you because it's so new for me, this medium. I'm not sure if it would be an archive or it would be a documentary film, but, that kind of interview, all those things are kind of new for me. Okay. Yeah, that's almost that. And the other thing that I'm gonna, work after being done with the Histories project is, should show you this one. Okay, when I went back to Tehran, I started, because I was looking for a job, I started to work with the United Nations. And it was an agency in United Nations called International Organization of Migration, IOM. My job was to facilitate some courses for Afghan refugees living in Iran who were about to immigrate to Australia or Norway. And it was just the context of the work that I'm talking about. This image also is just me teaching them in the class. And then by, being in touch with many Afghan families that I had never, heard of. I had heard of them, but I had never met any of them. And hearing this, because they were in this situation of leaving the country and going to a new country, and they didn't have this danger of being deported anymore, or and also they were in the building of the United Nations and all those things, and they were supposed to spend 5 days with me. After a couple of days, they kind of had this trust to talk about their problems and all those things. And I kind of, after a couple of years, I started to think why we know about their problems, but it's not because there are many problems. It seems like it would be the last thing to think about. But and also because you don't have any information, they wouldn't speak up about their problems. All those others, minority would talk. Not minority, but even, how do I say? About the women's rights, for example. There are many things which are going on, but about the refugees, almost nothing. There are just a few small things. So I thought maybe, and also when they are in Iran, they wouldn't speak up, and when they leave the country, they wouldn't care anymore because they wouldn't be in a kind of society or community, so they just prefer to live their life kind of. And also after having a hard time, you just want to survive kind of. And also if they go back to their country, it's not about the refugee period of time anymore. You have many problems to deal with in your country. So I thought maybe the best thing is, because those people that I was working with them, they were leaving the country, I thought maybe the best thing is to kind of collect their stories when they leave the country. And, you know, they are not in danger anymore. They are not afraid of being deported or anything. And they might, you know, feel free to talk. And then you can just collect the stories and just, you know, archive them and, you know, put them in public or for public uses or anything. And also, it was one part of the plan. I haven't started anything. I'm just reading about the... and the project is called Silent Memories. And the other part of the project would be making a website about all the reports, all the news, whatever we can find. So everybody else who wants to do something about that can use this kind of archive. So it's just an idea for the future. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
That's the whole.
Hello, hello. Yes, this is working. Thank you so much, Zeinab. There is so much in your talk. And before I turn to the audience and give them the floor to ask and converse with you, I just want to take a moment and ask you some of the things that have struck me in your talk, and perhaps that will open also some more conversation. In the first part of your talk, and more precisely Soliloquy, for example, that exchange, and the sort of the video recordings, I am very interested at your the notion of time, and how you reorganize it, how you cut it, you pause it, you reorganize it so that whatever is happening acquires another meaning, and more importantly, time stops being the main guide for the chronology, and the chronology, for example, in your talk becomes the colors. So if the background is green, it's the beginning, and it's not what is happening and when. Can you say a little bit more about, you know, this interest in playing around with the notion of time? Why? When did it start? How come? And what are you trying to establish by reorganizing time in your work like this?
I think, I mean, one of the answer could be because now, I mean, I didn't know at the time, I had no idea what I'm doing. But now that I'm looking at the works, I think maybe when I had this problem with making an artwork, you know, the reason was that because the only thing that made me make kind of things called art was to communicate with someone else, or making dialogue with someone else who is called the audience or whatever. Yes. And the problem that I found was that we are not speaking to each other from the same time. If I, you know, work on something and then show it to you, it wouldn't be a conversation between me and you, a live conversation, and there was a problem with that. So I decided to just, you know, forget about that thing at the middle of us and just talk to you. You know, just make it as simple as possible. Because it worked better. Why not? And then the problem was that if I talk to you, and if I make a new method of talking to you, then you would be my audience, and it would be something between me and you. And it would be a private thing. So I thought, okay, so I would show the representation of what happened here. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So the main subject, the main...
so it's almost like trying to get things more in synchrony. Like the conversations are not in sync, and you are trying to find a way to make them more in sync, more instant, more beyond the time element, trying to find ways to make them connect without the time barrier.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, the first step was to just get rid of that past and present, that kind of thing, which seemed to me artificial. That's, you know what I mean?
Yes, yes. The last question to you before I turn to the audience has to do with your two other works.
Yeah.
And they're quite personal, whether the Histories, which is looking into your own origins of your name and the histories behind it, or the project that you have in process here that is looking at history and historical narrative from a very personal perspective. I want to ask you, there has been, since the Arab Spring, what we call the Arab Spring, or a few years before that, there has been a lot of talk of a shift, especially from young artists from the Middle East, from what is called the collective to the more personal. And even the entry into the art, into their art, or the meaning of the art, becomes not linked to any historical event, important historical event, becomes a historical account, personal memories, personal experiences, collecting stories and histories. What are your thoughts about this? And as an artist from the region, have you ever felt compelled that because you are from the region, you have to deal with certain issues? What are your thoughts about that? Because that is a statement that is often made now, that we are seeing a trend of a lot of artists from the region going back and dealing with things that are much more personal than before. Some people have even gone as far as calling it a liberation.
I don't know about that part, because those other projects seem to me even more personal. The first projects, which are not about, anything, they are more like the same as like last title, all those things which seem like more about the essential meaning of, and they are more abstract kind of. They seem more personal to me than this, recent project. And about collecting the personal stories, I'm not sure, because if it was your ancestor, I would go and try to interview people. I don't get it.
Yes, what I'm saying is that it's still looking at the person and not at the historical, at a major political or historical time that you feel compelled to talk about or to promote in your art.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point. That's the point. That the small stories, not the biggest scale story that has been written by important people. I don't care about that one. And archiving those little things, I think it would be a acceptable kind of resistance for me against the official history or against the official narration.
Yes.
Yeah. That's
okay. All right. I want to open the floor to questions, and yes, we have two. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your talk. I have many questions for you, actually, about the video work you're doing. I'm not going to ask them all. I'll confine myself to just two, with the interviews you recorded with your family. First, it sounds like you went into this project with relatively little personal sense of what the answer would be. You didn't really have a preconceived answer to be. You had a vague idea of what it could be, but you weren't sold on it. So my question in that regard is, did you come out of all these interviews thinking you have some answer to what this is, or just more questions about what actually happened and how the name happened? Second question is, what are your thoughts on how you're going to approach making this into an archive or a documentary? Because the big difference there to me is that with an archive, you just slap a label on things and you put it up there and it's there as it is. And with a documentary, you are forced to edit and to choose some things and cut out others and frame things in a certain way. So it comes out of the first question. It leads you to end up wanting to make people think a certain thing or not think a certain thing when they watch it. So where are your thoughts on that right now?
That's actually my main challenge. When I'm saying that I don't know it would be an archive or a video document, the main challenge is about editing that. I'm actually editing that, but I'm not sure if I'm gonna, keep doing that. I'm gonna edit that. Now my plan is to edit the film and then my plan is to have 3 kind of films after each other, but with different edits. So it's kind of like emphasizing of what I'm doing rather than ignoring my participation. But the participation wouldn't be like making someone's voices upper or louder. And the first question now, the answer would be, I have my own kind of judgment now as a person. I'm not beyond that. But I don't want to, put my kind of... it happened even in the Soliloquy interviews in the interview that I did with Reza Abedini. I found it at some point, I found it kind of like... It was, for me, it was like I put him in a corner, and now everybody who reads that would say that he doesn't know that much. But for him, when I double checked that with him, he said, no, it's me, and it's, because as the way that I see the film right now, it's so obvious that certain thing happened, but the same people, when they see that, they don't think the same way. You know what I mean?
I think I got my question answered, but let me ask you. So it's about the medium. I was a little bit unclear as to what the medium was. So your work is primarily in the area of video, movies, and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Nice.
Movies,
Because it was unclear to me, that colorful document, going by the soliloquy.
Yeah.
How is that? How are you delivering that to your consumer, to your audience? I mean, is that like an ongoing dialogue?
The text or the video? The artist with the background color, or you are talking about the colorful text?
With Mr. Abedin.
Oh, with Mr. Abedini. It was a publication, so it was, the context was a book, so I
So
made
it's a
the
publication,
text.
it's not something colorful that you hang on the wall? Or
No, it's not. Yeah, it was pages of a book.
Any questions from the floor? More? Yes?
It's a little more pragmatic. The system in Iran, do they have record keeping? Is there like an agency you can go to nail down this history officially? In respect to your forefather there, your relative, your ancestor.
Oh, that I can go and search my name, his name, and look for
records.
what happened.
I mean, he was
not something that I have access to. It's not. I mean, there are some sources, but they are not open to the public. Some of them are open to the public, but especially about that special era of the history, constitutional revolution, and all those things. They are so sensitive about that, so they wouldn't, put everything open for the public.
And one other question about that. How is it that this, I guess, horrendous incident where he was killed, how is it that it morphed into becoming a surname? So you had a surname before.
No, there wasn't a surname before. They started putting surname from 90 years ago, apparently, or 100 years ago. That kind of, that, right? It was during the Reza Shah era, right? Or after that? You know better than me. Reza Shah, yeah. Before that, it was the first name, and then the place that you grew up, or your father's name, or something that you...
Similar to Arab countries.
Sure.
Such and such son, such and such.
Yeah.
But it morphed into this, not only are you from this town, but you're also from this person who was killed. And it's a little bit, how do you get to that? How do you stretch it to that point?
Or what your job is, similar to the Western, what your job is. Mr. Taylor, Mr.
Yeah, exactly.
Speak into the microphone, please.
Yeah, the last names, even in this country, it's either Johnson, son of John, or, based on or job, based on somebody's job or something.
Well, we don't have any martyrs.
Well, we've forgotten that, but it's.
No, but murder,
They
I
were never
mean,
named.
in Muslim
Oh, murder?
country is different. I mean, it's a honorific title. It's not like just being killed. You know, I don't, I mean, no, it's so, I mean.
Honorific.
Shahid.
Yeah,
Honorific.
yeah, yeah.
Honorific.
It's a glorification.
Yeah, exactly.
Can we take more questions from the floor? Yes, please.
Hi.
Two. One and two.
Hi. What is the support system like for artists doing this kind of work in the Middle East or in Iran? I know typically, like if you are an artist that sells something that you hang on your wall, you work with a gallery, but these more project-based, longer, social practice kind of work. What is the funding like? Are there grants like there are here in the States, or how do you make
Even-
a living as an artist? With
I
the-
do different jobs. I don't make money through my work. Yeah, that's my thing. Yeah.
Is
mean,
there
I
any
do
kind of
freelancing.
support,
Even here.
support system?
No, even
for
here,
art-
I mean, sometimes it happens. I mean, once in 3 years, there would be like 2 months residency, but it doesn't do anything. It's like, I mean, it is important, but it's not like a supporting system.
Please.
Can
Can you identify yourself?
yes.
I'm sorry.
I'm Persian. I'm from Iran, and I've been living here only for 4 years. I have relatives that their last name is like yours. So my question is that how would you relate the kind of going to the background and studying your name to what is, this is a very common name actually in Iran, right? This Shahidi is a common last name that you hear it a lot. So how would you explain that in that documentary? Is it only is it what you're looking for yourself can be relevant to the others as well, or?
I'm not sure actually, because what Mr. Amanat told me, he said, and
I think the Marnani is
the key.
the key.
Yeah, you are
Not
right.
Shahidi.
That's what he said. He said that if the Shahid or the martyr is from Isfahan, and the word afterward is about a neighborhood in Isfahan like Marnan or Sichun or whatever, then there would be a strong possibility that the last name is associated with a Baha'i victim or something. And the reason that they put this last name was that the family of the victim claimed that last name to prove that their victim believed in God. And also, and also because there was no history written or, official history about them, they did that to, have a kind of sign in the history that there was someone, being killed at that era or that kind of neighborhood. That's what he said. I mean, I have no idea. Yeah.
Thank you.
More questions? Yes.
I'm really curious about the tote bag. To me, that was fascinating, and I'm wondering whether was there an implicit, sort of challenge or commentary about consumerism and the fact that you chose a tote bag for people to carry around, and also, I hate to make this political. I'm a political scientist, so it becomes sort of like the sort of carpenter with the nail joke, right? But the fact that you're taking self-portraits, or there are people taking portraits of themselves, not wearing, obviously, covering their hair, but then being able to walk the streets of Tehran with clearly a picture, a self-portrait, but it's not covered. So there's an implicit political message that I see there. Again, one on the commercial front and one on the political, and I'm wondering if that was intended or it's just my reading, because I see everything as a nail.
No, you are kind of right, because it's not about just the veil. There are many things involved, and also there were, it wasn't just for women, even men were invited and participated. So it's more about all. So it's more about all those social norms that you kind of think that I don't want to follow that, but now you have this opportunity to make it like a statement, and whether if you are not in a situation to actually do it, you can, make it as a statement and carry it with you if you are ready for that. Your point is kind of right, but I'm just saying that for me, it's a bit more kind of diverse. It's not, just about that specific veil or something. And also the veil, even if we want to talk about the veil, in Iran you can see, the images of women without veil everywhere. So in terms of image, there is no boundary. You can have the image of a woman without. So we kind of use that opportunity.
May I just add something to that?
Can you stay close to the
I see.
So again, I apologize if I'm imposing this idea, but
No,
what
no.
was fascinating to me is that also, it's a very, again, using dichotomies here that are
dichotomy.
very can be offensive, but the sort of the westernization of the commercialization is put together, and yet it's so interesting because you said exactly that part of it is accepted. So in some way, it's pushing the boundaries in Iran and some of these social norms, and in so many ways, Western commercialization has been doing that because we know that Iranian societies consumes a lot of Western cultural iconic products and so forth. And so,
but
maybe I'm imposing it. But that's what I read.
Right. You're
that
right,
is
but I mean, in my community, people don't do that. I mean, those people who were the audience of the work and who got the work, they are not, the, how do I say, the consumerists of those products, because these are just people who are not even, wealthy enough to get those products. They are, people from the art community and, humanitarian science. Yeah.
If there are no more questions, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. I want to thank Zeinab for being with us. Thank you so much for sharing your work. Is there?
Just a quick question.
Okay, please.
Well, you said you didn't agree with the idea of women artists. That's right. But when you talked about the Afghani situation, you were talking about women's rights. So why women are important in one place but not in the other place?
Women are important in all places.
But you're in your assessment.
Yeah.
What is wrong with having women artists, not for artists?
I see.
Why is it important to just maybe the idea was that to bring women's status higher in the society when they said let's have women artists. Why did you look at it from a negative point of view, not a positive point of view?
I see. No, that's all, I agree with women's rights and all those things for sure, but the thing is that when when you get categorized as a woman artist, it just reproduces that social construction that I don't necessarily, I don't even understand that. I don't understand the gender boundary. That's not about
particularly in art, right?
the particular.
In art, what you're doing, you don't want to be categorized as a woman. I can understand it because I come from the same place. So you don't want to be categorized as a woman and separated from men in a big classification, art, something that is.
No, even not just about. It's not just about art. Even in life, I don't understand this. I'm just repeating myself, but it's like talking about race. I don't want to ignore that it exists and all those problems have happened during the history. Accepting that is one thing, and then trying to not to reproduce that social construction is something else. I don't want to, make it exactly.
On this note, I want to thank you again for joining us tonight. Thank you, Zeinab, for your excellent talk and for sharing with us your very inspiring work. Thank you all for joining us, and we hope to see you soon to another event at NUI. Thank you.